dear beloved friend. This early morning, as the horizon begins to glow with the quiet fire of a new dawn, I welcome you into a sacred moment. The world has not yet awakened to its full noise. The streets are still, the air feels crisp, and the first rays of sunlight rest gently upon the earth. This is the hour when everything seems softer, when the burdens of yesterday pause for a breath, and when the heart becomes most aware of its longing for peace. Many say that the morning is simply the start of another cycle, but those who listen closely know that it is far more than that. Morning is a holy threshold, a doorway where heaven leans closer, where the silence of the soul can finally hear whispers of hope. Imagine for a moment someone you may know, or perhaps a reflection of yourself. A woman sits by her window, still wrapped in the blanket she used to dry her tears through the night. The doctors have told her that her body is failing, that her options are few. Fear has become her constant companion. She feels trapped in a maze of questions that no one can answer. Her nights are long. Her mornings feel heavy, and the laughter she once knew has been stolen by the weight of despair. Or think of the man who has just lost his job after years of faithful service. He hides his worry from his children as he prepares their breakfast, but deep inside he trembles at the thought of bills that will not wait and dreams that seem to be slipping through his hands. There is also the student who studies late into the night, battling loneliness and the fear of not being enough. These are not distant stories. They live in the quiet corners of our world. They may even live in your own heart. Pain has a way of stretching the night and shrinking our courage. Fear makes even the smallest shadow look like a giant. Loss leaves us wondering if joy will ever visit again. Yet even in such moments, the morning comes. And with the morning comes the whisper of possibility. What if the darkness is not the end of your story? What if the heaviness you feel is only the soil in which new strength is about to grow? What if the tears you have cried through the night are the seeds of a joy that will bloom with the sunrise? This is where prayer enters. Prayer is not a performance or a ritual to check off. It is the raw cry of the soul reaching for the hand of the one who never sleeps. It is the conversation that brings our weakness into contact with divine strength. Through prayer, prisons have opened, chains have fallen, seas have parted, and impossible stories have turned into living testimonies. Through prayer, hearts are healed, minds find clarity, and hope rises where despair once ruled. The journey you are about to enter is more than a collection of words. It is a path through 24 chapters of communion, a steady walk that begins with longing and moves toward breakthrough. Each chapter is designed like a step, leading you from thirst to surrender, from remembrance to healing, from silence to the renewal of joy. Think of it as a pilgrimage, not through distant lands, but through the inner landscape of your own heart, guided by the gentle light of dawn. Perhaps you feel unworthy to begin, or too exhausted to lift your thoughts beyond the struggles of today. Do not be afraid. The power of this journey does not rest on how strong you are. It rests on the God who listens. Even the smallest whisper of faith is louder in heaven than the greatest shout of fear. Even the sigh you release without words is heard. Even the silence you carry is filled with meaning before Him. So, beloved friend, I invite you to open your heart as you step into this time. Allow the morning light to remind you that mercy is new, that failure is not final, and that every story can be rewritten. Let the quietness around you prepare you for a deeper conversation, not with yourself, but with the one who knows you more intimately than you know your own heart. Lift your eyes to the rising sun and let its warmth remind you that you are not abandoned. You are seen, you are loved, and you are being called into a dialogue that can transform the course of your life. This morning is not ordinary. It is the beginning of a holy journey. It is the hour when heaven bends low, when chains are prepared to break, when blessings are waiting to unfold. Take a deep breath. Allow the stillness to wash over you. Prepare yourself not for routine, but for encounter. We are about to step together into prayer, into a dialogue with God that has the power to heal, restore, and release. Welcome to the journey, dear Heavenly Father. In the quiet of this early morning, I come to you with my soul awake but trembling, my body weary yet longing for renewal. The air still carries the coolness of night, and the earth waits for the first warmth of the sun. I feel this same waiting inside of me. I am thirsty for your presence. I am dry from days when I tried to carry myself without leaning on you. I confess that sometimes I chase distractions, hoping they will fill the hollow spaces, but they never satisfy. Only you can quench this thirst. Only you can meet me in this fragile dawn and remind me that my life is held in your hands. I open my heart without disguise. I do not pretend to be strong. I do not pretend to be whole. I admit that I am needy, that I am wounded, that I am unfinished. I lift to you the weight of fatigue that sits on my shoulders. I bring the heavy questions that echo in my mind. I offer the fears that rise when I look ahead and the regrets that whisper when I look behind. I cannot fix these things on my own. I do not even know how to start. Yet here, in the hush of morning, I believe you are near, listening, and ready to pour living water into my desert places. I remember the words of the psalmist who longed for you in a dry and weary land where there was no water. His cry becomes my own. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh yearns for you. I do not ask for riches or applause. I do not ask for control or certainty. I ask for you, because if I have you, I can endure the wilderness. If I have you, I can face the unknown. If I have you, I will not be alone in this world that often feels unkind. Pour your peace into my restless spirit. Let it flow like a river through the cracks of my fear. Pour your joy into the empty rooms of my heart. Let it rise like a fountain that cannot be contained. Pour your strength into my weak frame. Let it lift me as on the wings of an eagle. I do not demand sudden answers, but I ask for the simple grace of your nearness. Wrap me in the assurance that you see me, that you hear me, that I matter to you in this vast universe. Teach me to wait in this holy stillness. Teach me to breathe without rushing ahead. Teach me to taste the sweetness of silence, where your whispers are hidden. Let this morning be more than another entry in the calendar. Let it be a turning point where thirst is acknowledged, where longing is named, and where a soul begins to drink deeply from the well that never runs dry. I surrender to this moment. Fragile as it is, I let go of the masks I wear before others. I set aside the false strength I project. I bring myself as I truly am. A child hungry for love. A wanderer desperate for direction. A heart yearning for home. Meet me here in this space between night and day. Meet me here before the demands of the world return. Meet me here before the noise of life drowns out the gentle voice of grace. I ask for courage to walk today differently, not as one who is empty, but as one who is filled, not as one who is forgotten, but as one who is remembered, not as one who is weak, but as one who has touched the hem of divine power. Let the dew of this morning remind me that mercy is new. Let the rising sun remind me that light always comes. Let the first birdsong remind me that praise is always possible. Dear Heavenly Father, I hold nothing back. I bring the secret wounds that I rarely speak of. I bring the hidden doubts I fear to confess. I bring the scars of disappointments that have shaped me more than I wish to admit. Take them. Heal them. Transform them. Show me that brokenness is not the end, that thirst is not a curse, but an invitation to drink from a deeper stream. In this first chapter of my prayer, I choose honesty over perfection. I choose intimacy over distance. I choose to stand before you with nothing but longing, believing that longing itself is holy. I choose to believe that the morning light is not only for the earth, but also for me, that the warmth of the sun is a parable of your presence, breaking into the cold corners of my being. So I wait here, I breathe here, I linger here in the tender hours of the day, trusting that you are enough. Father, as the light of morning grows stronger, I continue from where I left my heart in your presence. In the first whispers of dawn, I admitted my thirst. And now, standing in that same honesty, I take one step deeper. My soul is not only longing, it is ready to yield. The longing itself has shown me that I cannot survive on my own strength. And so, Father, I bring myself not simply as one who desires, but as one who lays everything down. There are burdens I have carried for too long, thinking I could solve them by planning harder, working longer, or pretending to be in control. Yet every time I clutch them tighter, they only grow heavier. I realize now that surrender is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the only way to find peace. I picture my hands open before you, Father, no longer grasping for security in places that have failed me. I lay before you the need to be understood, the drive to be right, the fear of losing what I love, the pride that resists being led. I confess them as weights too heavy for me. Father, in this surrender I bring you my relationships. I release the people I try to manage in my own strength. I cannot control their choices, their words, or their responses. I give them back to you, trusting that you love them more than I ever could. I bring you my work and my dreams, the ones I polish in silence and guard with anxious energy. They are not mine to clutch. They are gifts that belong to you, seeds meant to be planted, watered, and grown by your hand. I release the illusion that I can make them flourish. I also lay before you the hidden corners of my heart, the parts that are still restless, the wounds I try to hide even from myself. Father, take them. Take the anger I bury, the disappointments I rehearse, the failures that loop through my memory. I surrender the fear that my life has no purpose, the suspicion that maybe I am unseen. I choose to believe that when I open these raw places to you, they become ground for healing instead of shame. This surrender is not passive. It is an act of courage. It is standing before you, Father, and saying, I trust you more than I trust myself. I trust your wisdom above my reasoning, your timing above my deadlines, your plan above my attempts to force outcomes. In this surrender, I no longer need to know how everything will work out. I only need to know that you hold the outcome. Teach me to walk through this day with open hands. Let every conversation, every decision, every step be marked not by control but by trust. When fear tempts me to take back what I have laid down, remind me of this morning moment. Remind me that peace is found in release. When pride pushes me to prove myself, whisper again that surrender is the path to freedom. Father, I ask you to exchange what I surrender for what only you can give. Where I release control, give me peace. Where I let go of fear, give me courage. Where I set down pride, give me humility wrapped in strength. Where I release disappointment, give me new hope. Where I lay down my wounds, give me healing that goes deeper than words. I remember that your son surrendered fully in a garden before he walked into suffering. And in that surrender came victory for the world. That picture is too great for me to fully understand. Yet it teaches me that surrender leads not to loss but to life. In my small way, I echo that choice this morning. I bow my will, not as a ritual but as a living decision. Father, let this chapter of surrender mark my day. Let it soften the way I speak, so that my words carry kindness instead of control. Let it shape the way I work, so that my labor is done in trust instead of striving. Let it guide the way I love, so that my affection is free from fear and expectation. Let surrender become the rhythm of my steps, the posture of my heart, the song of my spirit. I surrender my past, the regrets that no longer serve me. I surrender my present, the choices that weigh heavy in my mind. I surrender my future, the unknown that tempts me to worry. All of it belongs to you. All of it is safer in your hands than in mine. As the morning stretches across the sky, I see it as a reflection of what I ask you to do in me. The darkness slowly fades, the light steadily grows, and the world awakens to a new day. Let my heart awaken the same way. Let the shadows inside me lose their hold as I release them to you. Let the light of trust grow brighter as I yield myself without condition. Let this day not be defined by how tightly I hold on, but by how freely I let go. Father, I do not know all that today will bring, but I know that surrender has already opened the way for peace. I stand here in the morning light with empty hands, and in their emptiness I discover fullness. For when my hands are empty, there is room for you to place what truly matters, and that is enough for me today. Father, as I move from the place of surrender into the quiet space of reflection, I find myself remembering, in releasing my burdens to you. Father, I suddenly see how many times you have already carried me when I could not carry myself. The act of letting go has opened the eyes of my heart, and I cannot help but look back at the path behind me, noticing the markers of your faithfulness that I once rushed past. Father, I recall the nights when fear pressed so heavily on me that sleep seemed impossible, and yet somehow morning came with strength enough to rise. I think of the days when provisions appeared just as resources ran out, when a kind word or a needed opportunity arrived like rain on dry ground. These were not accidents. They were quiet miracles, reminders that you have always been near even when I felt forgotten. I remember the moments of deep loneliness when it seemed no one understood, and yet a small sign of comfort appeared, sometimes in the form of a friend's unexpected call. Other times in the simple peace that settled without explanation. Father, these memories assure me that I was never truly alone. In remembering them, I recognize the steady thread of your presence woven through seasons that felt unraveled at the time. Father, I recall the prayers I once whispered in desperation, words spoken with trembling lips, not knowing if they would rise above the ceiling. Looking back, I see how many of those cries became the seeds of blessings I now walk in. Some were answered differently than I imagined, yet all were shaped by wisdom greater than mine. Remembering teaches me that no prayer has been wasted, that every sigh was heard, that every tear was stored. This remembering turns my heart toward gratitude. I thank you, Father, for the countless rescues I did not recognize at the moment. I thank you for sparing me from choices that would have harmed me, for closing doors I once begged you to open. I thank you for the strength that came in seasons I thought would destroy me, for the people who crossed my path at just the right time, quiet guidance that redirected my steps before I even realized I was drifting. Father, I realize that remembering is itself a form of worship. It shifts my eyes from scarcity to abundance, from fear to trust, from despair to hope. When I recall your past faithfulness, I cannot doubt your present care. Memory becomes the soil where new faith grows. As I rehearse these moments of grace, I find courage to face the unknown stretches ahead. Help me, Father, to cultivate a rhythm of remembering. Let me not rush past blessings unacknowledged. Teach me to pause and mark the small victories, the answered prayers, the lessons disguised in hardship. Let me write them down, tell them aloud. Carry them like stones of remembrance that declare, here is where God helped me. Here is where God met me. Here is where God carried me. I ask you to bring to mind the stories I have forgotten, the deliverances I minimized, the interventions I dismissed as coincidence. Stir in me a memory of grace so vivid that it silences the lies of fear. When discouragement whispers that nothing will change, let remembrance shout that you have always been a God of change. When anxiety claims that I am alone, let memory remind me that you have always been present. When despair suggests that hope is naive, let memory answer that hope has always been justified in your hands. Father, in this chapter of prayer, I do not only remember my own journey, I remember the testimonies of others. I think of loved ones who have told me their stories of healing, provision, restoration. I recall the accounts written in Scripture where seas parted, walls crumbled, and chains broke. their memories become part of mine, because we belong to the same story of redemption. Together they remind me that you are unchanging, that the same God who acted then is acting now. Let this discipline of remembering not be a fleeting moment, but a daily practice. Let gratitude rise each morning as naturally as breath. Let stories of your faithfulness be on my lips when I speak to others, so that my remembering becomes their encouragement. My testimony becomes their spark of hope. Let me carry remembrance as a shield when doubts attack, as a song when nights grow heavy, as a torch when paths grow dim. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for the power of memory redeemed, where my mind once circled around pain and loss. You are teaching me to circle around grace and promise. Where I once rehearsed failures, you invite me to rehearse victories. Where I once clung to regrets, you lead me to cling to gratitude. And so, Father, as the morning continues to unfold, I choose to walk in remembrance. I choose to let the past fuel my faith for the present. I choose to believe that the God who was faithful yesterday will be faithful today and tomorrow. This remembering strengthens my steps, calms my heart, and lifts my eyes. In memory I find courage. In gratitude I find peace. And in recalling your goodness, I find hope for the road ahead. Father, after remembering all the ways you have carried me, I sense you leading me to face the things that still bind me. Memory has strengthened my heart with gratitude, yet it has also revealed patterns that remain unbroken. Father, as I stand in this early morning light, I choose not to hide from them. I bring them into your presence and name them for what they are. I believe that what is brought into the open loses its power to dominate in the dark. Father, I confess the weight of fear that often chains me. It grips me when I step toward something new, whispering that failure is certain. It freezes me when opportunities arrive, convincing me that I am not enough. I call this chain by its name: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not belonging. I place it before you, Father, asking you to break it, to melt the links that have tightened around my confidence. I also name the chain of comparison. Too often I measure my worth against others, envying their progress, doubting my place. This chain has stolen joy from my victories and blinded me to the unique path you have set for me. Father, I lay down this habit of comparison. I ask you to free me from the constant need to prove myself by someone else's standard. Teach me to rest in the identity you have given, unshaken by the voices that say I am less. Father, I name the chain of discouragement that lingers when prayers seem unanswered. At times it feels like a heavy blanket pressing me down, telling me to stop expecting, to stop hoping, to stop praying. I refuse to let this chain define my faith any longer. I bring it into your light and declare that discouragement will not silence me. Father, give me strength to continue even when outcomes delay, to believe that every seed planted in prayer will bear fruit in your time. I name the chain of unhealthy words spoken over me. Some of them came from others, careless remarks or sharp criticisms that I allowed to root in my heart. Some came from myself, words of doubt, words of condemnation, words that cut deeper than any blade. These words have echoed in my thoughts like iron links, shaping how I see myself. Father, I break agreement with them now. I ask you to replace them with the truth you speak. Words of value, words of purpose, words of love. Father, I also name the chain of hidden habits, the quiet compromises that I excuse in secret. These habits promise comfort but leave me emptier. They offer distraction but steal my peace. I refuse to pretend they are harmless. I bring them into the open, where your mercy can cleanse and your power can deliver. I do not want to be divided in heart. I long to live whole before you. In naming these chains, Father, I feel both weakness and courage. Weakness, because I cannot break them alone. Courage, because I know you can. Your word says to throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and to run with perseverance the race marked out for us. I want to run, Father, unburdened, unshackled, free. I ask for wisdom to recognize new chains before they harden. Show me when subtle lies begin to wrap around my thoughts. Alert me when unhealthy patterns start to form. Help me to confront them quickly, with honesty, rather than allowing them to grow in silence. Let me walk daily with the discernment to notice and the humility to confess. Father, I do not only name chains for myself. I intercede for others who are bound in ways they cannot yet admit. For the friend stuck in addiction, I whisper their name before you. For the family member trapped in cycles of anger, I lift them into your light. For the one who hides under shame, I pray courage for them to speak, to bring their chains into the open. Let the freedom you bring to me overflow into those around me. Let this morning become a memorial of honesty. Father, let it mark the day when chains were named, when silence was broken, when fear lost its disguise. Let the act of naming become the first crack in the prison wall, the sound that signals release is near. Let me never be afraid to bring the darkest parts of myself to you, knowing that your love is greater than any chain. Father, I believe that nothing hidden must stay hidden, and nothing broken must stay broken. As the light grows stronger outside, let the light within me grow stronger too. Let every chain I have named begin to weaken under the weight of your truth. Let this day be lived not in bondage, but in freedom, not in silence, but in honesty, not in fear, but in courage. I choose to stand unmasked before you, Father, trusting that the act of naming is the beginning of release and the beginning of a new way to walk. Father, after naming the chains that have held me, I feel you calling me not only to confess, but also to rise. Chains lose their power when exposed, but true freedom is found when I take my place in the authority you have given through Christ. Father, I do not come in arrogance, but in reverence, knowing that the authority I hold is borrowed from you, rooted in the victory of the cross and the triumph of the empty tomb. Father, I remember that when fear once spoke louder than courage, you reminded me that perfect love casts out fear. Today I choose to stand on that promise, declaring that fear has no rightful claim over me. Where doubt tries to whisper its lies, I answer with truth. Where condemnation seeks to accuse, I answer with grace. I stand not in my strength, but in the authority of the one who has already overcome. Father, I step into this day clothed not in shame, but in dignity. I remember that I am your child, chosen and set apart, called to live not beneath, but above the weight of despair. I decree over my heart that it will not be ruled by anxiety. I decree over my mind that it will not be bound by confusion. I decree over my body that it will not be paralyzed by weariness. I speak life because you have given me the right to speak as your child. With this authority, Father, I speak against every voice that seeks to diminish who I am. I silence the accusations that say I will never be free. I cancel the lies that insist my story is already finished. I refuse the whispers that call me unworthy. In Christ I am made whole, and in His name I stand. Father, I extend this authority beyond myself. I pray for my family, declaring peace over their hearts, protection over their steps, strength for their journey. I pray for my community, speaking light into dark corners, hope into weary lives, renewal into broken places. Let my words be more than air. Let them carry weight, because they are spoken in alignment with your will. I ask for wisdom to use this authority with humility. Father, remind me that power is never for control, but for service, never for domination, but for love. Teach me to wield it gently, as a shepherd rather than a tyrant, as a servant rather than a master. Let my authority be marked by compassion, so that when I speak, it builds rather than tears down, heals rather than wounds, encourages rather than discourages. Father, help me to see myself not as a victim of circumstance, but as one who can stand in the victory of Christ. When trials come, let me not shrink back in fear, but rise in confidence. When obstacles appear, let me see them as opportunities for your power to be revealed. When the enemy tries to intimidate me, let me stand firm, declaring that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. I remember that Jesus told His followers that they would tread on serpents and scorpions, and nothing would harm them. Father, I hold to this promise, not in literal battles, but in the daily struggles that seek to crush my spirit. I tread on fear. I tread on despair. I tread on hopelessness, not because of who I am, but because of who you are in me. Father, let this authority transform how I walk through this day. Let it shape my posture, so I stand tall even when challenges press in. Let it shape my speech, so I speak with conviction rather than hesitation. Let it shape my choices, so I act with boldness rather than retreat. Let every step remind me that I am not powerless, but empowered by your Spirit. I also pray for discernment to recognize when I have surrendered authority out of fatigue or distraction. Father, lift my eyes when I am tempted to shrink back. Remind me of this morning moment, when I chose to stand rather than cower, to believe rather than doubt, to declare rather than stay silent. Keep me anchored in this truth throughout the hours ahead. Father, I embrace this identity you have given me, not as one who barely survives, but as one who lives with authority. I rise in the knowledge that Christ has triumphed, and because He reigns, I am secure. I stand not in defiance of others, but in alignment with your will. I stand not for pride, but for purpose. I stand not to boast, but to bear witness that your power is real, and your promises are true. Father, after standing in the authority you have given me, I feel you inviting me to a place even deeper, a place where my voice becomes more than words and my spirit rises in praise. Authority is not silent. It is alive when expressed through worship. Father, I choose this morning to lift my heart in songs of gratitude, not only for what you have done, but for who you are. Praise is not a response to circumstances. It is a declaration that you are greater than all circumstances. Father, I remember how Paul and Silas prayed and sang hymns while their bodies were chained in prison. Their midnight song was not polished or rehearsed. It was born from faith that defied the darkness. The walls could not hold their worship, and the foundations shook under the sound of their voices. I picture that scene and realize that praise has the power to break more than physical chains. It unlocks the invisible prisons of fear, despair, and hopelessness. So here, in the quiet of morning, I lift my own song. It may not carry melody. It may not reach the ears of others, but I know it reaches you. Father, I praise you for being unchanging when everything else shifts. I praise you for being faithful when I am weak. I praise you for being merciful when I stumble. I praise you for being near when loneliness creeps close. I praise you not because life is simple, but because your goodness remains steady in the storm. Father, let my praise shake the prisons inside me. Where discouragement has tried to silence my joy, let praise rise louder. Where shame has tried to weigh down my spirit, let praise lift me higher. Where doubt has sought to bind my confidence, let praise unfasten the locks. I believe that as I glorify you, chains begin to fall, doors begin to open, and the heaviness I carry begins to shift. I also offer praise as a weapon. Father, not against people, but against despair, against lies, against every voice that says I cannot change. Praise confuses the darkness. Praise declares that victory already belongs to you. Praise reminds me that even in the deepest night, light is already breaking through. Father, I choose to praise you for the small things that often go unnoticed. I thank you for the air that fills my lungs, the strength to rise from bed, the gentle light that warms the earth. I praise you for the love of those who stand beside me, for the quiet provisions that sustain me, for the moments of laughter that lighten heavy days. I refuse to take them for granted. I name them. I thank you for them. I lift them as offerings of gratitude. I praise you for the unanswered prayers too. Father, the ones that linger without resolution. I do not always understand why some doors remain closed, but I trust that behind each delay is wisdom I cannot yet see. I praise you not only for the blessings I hold, but also for the ones still forming in the unseen, the mercies waiting to unfold in their season. Father, let my praise spill over into the lives around me. Let the song of gratitude I carry affect the way I speak to others, the way I listen, the way I serve. Let those who are weary hear encouragement through my words. Let those who are lonely feel companionship through my presence. Let my life itself become a hymn that testifies to your goodness when shadows return. Father, remind me to sing again when I feel pressed down. Remind me that worship lifts when I am tempted to despair. Remind me that praise interrupts the voice of hopelessness. Make my spirit quick to sing, even before my mind finds reasons. Let my lips be swift to honor you, even when my circumstances suggest silence. Father, I do not praise you to earn favor. I praise you because favor already flows from who you are. I do not worship to manipulate outcomes. I worship because you are worthy in every season. I do not lift my voice because everything is perfect. I lift my voice because you are perfect. Praise is not a tool of persuasion. It is a confession of truth, a declaration that you are enthroned above it all. Father, as the morning stretches into day, let praise remain the rhythm of my heart. Let it be more than a moment. Let it be a lifestyle. Let it saturate my thoughts, my conversations, my decisions. Let it break every unseen chain, silence every lie, and carry me forward with courage. In praise I discover freedom. In praise I find strength. And in praise I taste the joy of heaven, even while walking the earth. Dear Heavenly Father, as praise continues to echo from my heart, I sense you stirring me to step into a new rhythm. Praise has lifted me out of prisons. And now, Father, you are teaching me to walk forward without the weight of delay. I have known seasons where progress felt slow, where every step seemed hindered, where doors remained closed no matter how much I knocked. This morning I bring before you the lingering sense of postponement that has shadowed my journey, and I ask you to breathe acceleration where there has been stagnation. Father, I recognize how delay has often shaped my thoughts. Waiting for answers has sometimes bred discouragement, and the passing of time has tempted me to lower my expectations. Yet I believe delay does not mean denial. I believe that your timing is not bound to my impatience, and that what I call delay is often preparation. Still, I ask you now, Father, to cut through the hindrances that are not from you, to remove the barriers that have no purpose, to bring swiftness where your spirit is ready to move. I surrender my frustration. Father, the frustration of watching others move ahead while I remain in place. I surrender the bitterness that whispers when prayers linger unanswered. I surrender the doubt that wonders if you have forgotten me. Instead, I ask for eyes to see where you are already working, and for faith to believe that movement is coming. Let this morning mark the end of unnecessary delay. Father, where the enemy has tangled my steps with distraction, untangle them now. Where my own choices have slowed me, grant me wisdom to change. Where circumstances have blocked me, open a way that no one can shut. Where I have been held back by fear, release boldness within me. Let the things that once stalled me lose their grip, and let acceleration carry me forward according to your design. I ask you, Father, to breathe acceleration into my calling. Stir dormant gifts that have waited in silence. Awaken opportunities that seemed long forgotten. Renew the passion that delays tried to smother. Bring divine alignment so that the right people, the right doors, and the right timing converge in ways only you can orchestrate. Let my steps quicken not out of striving, but out of the wind of your spirit moving me onward. Father, I also pray over relationships affected by delay. Heal the wounds created by long misunderstandings. Restore connections that have been on hold. Rekindle trust where it has been eroded. Let acceleration come in reconciliation. so that love flows freely where it was once hindered. Father, I ask for acceleration in areas of healing, for every place in my heart or body that has lingered in pain longer than expected. I ask for breakthrough, for every wound that has resisted closure. Let your hand bring swiftness of restoration. For every memory that has clung like a shadow, let light flood quickly and drive it out. Teach me to walk in step with this new pace. Father, guard me from rushing ahead of you, and guard me from shrinking back. Let acceleration be the fruit of obedience, not the product of impatience. Let each step be guided by peace, even as momentum increases. Show me how to carry both urgency and rest, both speed and steadiness. I also intercede for those around me who are caught in delay. For the one who waits for provision, bring swift supply. For the one who waits for direction, bring clear guidance. For the one who waits for reconciliation, bring unexpected restoration. Let their waiting be shortened by your hand, and let their hearts be encouraged by visible movement. Father, I believe that the season of endless delay is ending. I believe that you are releasing a fresh wave of acceleration over my life. I believe that what has been held back is about to be released. That what has been paused is about to be activated. That what has been buried is about to rise. I choose to walk forward with faith, no longer chained to discouragement, but carried by the momentum of your Spirit. Father, as you have stirred me to step into acceleration, I realize that to move swiftly, I must also be made whole. Father, I cannot walk in the fullness of your purpose while carrying wounds that weigh me down. Some of these wounds are in my body, some are buried deep in my thoughts, and some live quietly in my memories. This morning I bring them all to you, not to hide them any longer, but to immerse them in the river of healing that flows from your heart. Father, I acknowledge the places in my body that feel frail. There are aches I have learned to ignore, weaknesses I push through as if pretending will erase them. But you see every detail, every cell, every breath. I place before you the parts of me that need restoration, asking not only for strength to endure, but for the touch that renews. Father, breathe vitality into weary limbs. Bring balance to what is out of order. Let your life flow through me like water through dry ground. I also bring to you the places in my mind that are restless. Father, I confess the racing thoughts that keep me unsettled, the anxieties that rise uninvited, the confusion that clouds decisions. These inner storms drain my energy as much as any physical pain. I long for calm within, for clarity where fog has lingered. Father, let healing come to my thoughts. Replace torment with peace. Replace fear with assurance. Replace noise with stillness. Wash my mind in the river of truth until it becomes steady and clear. And Father, I bring before you the wounds of memory. There are moments I wish I could erase, scenes that replay without permission, words spoken years ago that still echo in my heart. They lie hidden yet heavy, shaping how I see myself and how I respond to life. I ask you now to enter those memories with your healing light. Father, lift the sting from the past, remove the bitterness that clings, and rewrite those chapters with redemption. Let the shadows of old pain no longer dictate today's choices. Father, I picture your healing like a river flowing from the sanctuary. It moves gently yet with power, covering everything in its path, bringing life where there was barrenness. Let this river flow through me now. Let it cleanse the stains of disappointment, soothe the ache of loss, and refresh the dry places of my soul. I step into this river not as one who deserves, but as one who trusts. I ask also for healing in my emotions. Father, sometimes anger rises too quickly, or sadness lingers too long, or numbness dulls what should be vibrant. I lay these patterns before you. Touch the roots beneath them, the causes I do not fully understand, and bring balance where extremes have ruled. Teach my heart to respond with grace, with steadiness, with compassion. Heal the brokenness that distorts my reactions and make me whole within. Father, I pray for those around me who need healing too, for the one battling illness that wears them down. Bring strength for the one tormented by anxiety. Bring calm for the one haunted by past wounds. Bring release. Let your river reach beyond me, flowing into the lives of those I love, into families, into communities. Let healing spread like dawn breaking across the horizon, touching places far beyond what I can see. I also ask for wisdom to cooperate with healing. Father, show me how to care for my body with diligence, how to rest when I need to, how to nourish myself well. Show me how to guard my mind from voices that poison, how to choose what is true, how to resist patterns that invite harm. Show me how to deal with memories in healthy ways, to speak of them when silence is destructive, to release them when holding on only deepens the wound. Let me not only receive healing, but walk in the habits that keep me whole. Father, I thank you for the promise that you heal the brokenhearted and bind up their wounds. I believe that no pain is too deep for your touch, no memory too old for your mercy, no illness too strong for your power. Healing is not a distant hope. It is present in you, flowing like a river even now. Father, as I stand in this new day, I choose to believe that healing is mine to receive. I choose to believe that my body can be strengthened, my mind can be renewed, my memories can be restored. I step into the river of your love and let it cover me completely. I will not cling to the brokenness I once carried. I will rise from this moment lighter, freer, and more whole, ready to walk forward in the life you have prepared. Father, as the river of healing flows through body, mind, and memory, I feel you drawing me to confront one of the most persistent struggles of my heart. Father, even when wounds begin to mend, anxiety often lingers like a shadow that refuses to leave. It creeps into my thoughts in the quiet moments, rushing ahead of me into the day, weighing me down with endless what-ifs. This morning I bring that heaviness to you. I bring the racing thoughts, the restless nights, the heart that beats too fast when uncertainty rises. I bring it honestly, because I know you care for the burdens that I cannot carry alone. Father, I confess how often I let worry steal my joy. I dwell on problems before they even arrive. I rehearse scenarios that may never happen. I tighten my grip on outcomes, as if my grasp could prevent disaster. But all it does is exhaust me, leaving me restless and afraid. I name this for what it is: anxiety, a thief that drains my energy, a fog that clouds my vision, a weight that presses down on hope. I do not want to be ruled by it anymore. Father, you have promised that peace, which surpasses understanding, will guard the hearts and minds of those who turn their concerns over to you. So I choose to release my worries into your hands. I speak them out one by one, refusing to let them stay hidden where they grow stronger. I surrender fears about the future. I surrender the pressure of finances. I surrender the unknowns of relationships. I surrender the questions about my health. Each one I lift to you, Father, and in their place I ask for peace. Let peace rise like a gentle tide within me. Father, let it fill the hollow spaces left by fear. Let it cover every anxious thought like a calm blanket that settles over a restless soul. Let it remind me that I am not alone, that the one who created me is also the one who sustains me. Let peace quiet the noise inside my head, still the trembling in my body, and anchor me when storms try to shake me. Father, I ask you to train my heart in the practice of peace. Teach me to breathe slowly when panic tries to overwhelm. Teach me to pause and remember your promises when fear races ahead. Teach me to anchor my thoughts in truth instead of lies. Show me how to turn every anxious thought into a prayer, how to transform every fear into a reminder of your care. I ask also for the grace to notice the small signs of peace you send, the quiet comfort of morning light, the sound of laughter, the kindness of a friend, the stillness that comes when I pause to breathe. These are not small things. They are gifts. Let me receive them fully, remembering that peace is not only a future promise, but a present reality that you are offering me each day. Father, I lift to you the moments when anxiety returns again and again. I know that peace is not always one final breakthrough, but a daily choice. Help me to make that choice over and over. Even when the feelings resist, let me believe that peace is possible, even when my emotions say otherwise. Let me cling to the truth that you are greater than my fears, and that no storm is stronger than your presence. I also pray for those around me who live under the weight of anxiety, for the friend who hides their worry behind a smile. Bring relief. For the family member who cannot rest because of constant fear. Bring calm. For the one who faces battles in silence. Bring assurance that they are not alone. Let your peace extend beyond me. Father, flowing into households, workplaces, and hearts that are desperate for rest. Father, let this morning be the turning point where anxiety loosens its grip. Let it be the moment when peace begins to govern my thoughts more than fear. Let it be the day when I start to notice the difference between a restless heart and a calm one, between a worried mind and a steady one. Let it be the beginning of a new rhythm where peace is not an exception but the norm. Father, I stand in this moment with open hands, having laid down my fears. I feel the quiet assurance that peace is not far away, but already here. It is in the steadying of my breath, in the slowing of my thoughts, in the gentle reminder that I am held by you. Let this peace guard me through this day. Let it lead me into decisions Let it stay with me when night returns. I choose to trust that peace is stronger than anxiety, and that your presence is stronger than any fear that rises within me. Father, as peace begins to settle where anxiety once ruled, I realize that true peace cannot stay if resentment still hides in my heart. Father, the quiet of this morning brings me face to face with the reality that some of my unrest is not born from fear of the future, but from wounds of the past, memories of words that cut, actions that betrayed, and relationships that broke still linger like heavy stones in my spirit. To step fully into freedom, I know I must release these weights, and that release begins with forgiveness. Father, I admit that forgiveness does not come easily. My heart resists letting go, because it feels like letting go means saying what happened was acceptable. Yet I know forgiveness is not about excusing the wrong, but about refusing to let it define me. I hear your whisper that holding on to bitterness binds me more tightly than it binds the one who hurt me. I want to be free from that prison. Father, I want to lay down the right to rehearse old wounds. I want to breathe without carrying the heaviness of offense. So this morning I choose to name those I need to forgive. Father, you know their names already, but I speak them to you as an act of surrender. I forgive the one who spoke harshly when I needed kindness. I forgive the one who abandoned me when I needed presence. I forgive the one who misunderstood me and judged me unfairly. I forgive the one who broke promises and left me with silence. For each face that comes to mind, I place them before you. Father, asking you to bless them, to heal them, to restore them in ways I cannot. I also bring myself into this place of forgiveness. Father, I confess that sometimes the hardest person to forgive is me. I hold on to guilt for choices I regret, for words I cannot take back, for seasons I feel I wasted. I replay mistakes and punish myself with shame. But I know this is not your desire for me. You do not condemn. You invite me into mercy. So I choose to forgive myself. I release the shame that binds me. I accept the grace you so freely give. Father, forgiveness does not erase memory, but it transforms it. Where there was pain, forgiveness plants seeds of compassion. Where there was anger, forgiveness opens the door to healing. Where there was division, forgiveness lays the foundation for reconciliation. I ask you to water these seeds, Father, so that they grow into fruit that nourishes not only me, but also those around me. I also ask for strength to forgive continually. Father, sometimes the hurt resurfaces even after I have chosen to forgive. Teach me that forgiveness is not always a single moment, but a repeated decision. Remind me each time bitterness tries to return that I have already laid it down. Help me to keep releasing until the wound no longer controls my thoughts. Father, let forgiveness flow beyond my personal circle. I pray for families torn apart by old grudges, for communities divided by anger, for nations scared by hatred. Let forgiveness rise in places where revenge has ruled too long. Let reconciliation replace division. Let mercy rewrite stories of bitterness. Begin with me, Father, but do not end with me. Let the freedom I taste become a ripple that spreads wider than I can imagine. Father, I stand here this morning lighter, Because I have chosen to forgive, the chains of resentment no longer hold me as tightly. The voices of accusation no longer echo as loudly. I feel space opening inside of me. Space for joy to return. Space for love to grow. Space for peace to remain. This is the freedom you promised, and I step into it now. Father, having laid down resentment and stepped into the freedom of forgiveness, I feel you turning my heart toward something even deeper. Father, forgiveness clears the ground, but now you are calling me to plant new truth where old lies once grew. For too long I have allowed voices outside and within to tell me who I am. I have let failure shape my reflection, rejection write my worth, and comparison distort my vision. This morning, Father, I long to reclaim the identity you gave me from the very beginning. Father, I confess that I have often measured myself by fragile standards. I have tied my value to achievements that fade, to approval that shifts, to appearances that change with time. When success came, I felt lifted for a moment, but when it left, I felt empty again. When people praised me, I felt worthy, but when silence came, I doubted my significance. This cycle has left me wary. Father, always chasing affirmation but never finding rest. I want to step out of this pattern and stand on the unshakable truth of who I am in you. You remind me, Father, that I am created in your image, not by accident but with intention. Every detail of who I am reflects your design. My voice, my heart, my gifts, my story all carry fingerprints of your purpose. No mistake has erased that imprint. No rejection has canceled that calling. No failure has removed that mark of belonging. Father, I choose this morning to reclaim that identity, to believe what you say about me above what anyone else has said. I am not defined by the wounds of my past. I am not bound by the labels others placed on me. I am not reduced to the moments I regret. Father, you call me chosen, loved, forgiven, and free. You call me your child, not an orphan left to figure things out alone. You call me valuable, not because of what I produce, but because of who I am in you. You call me redeemed, not because I deserve it, but because grace has rewritten my name. Father, I ask you to silence the voices that compete with your truth, the voice of comparison that says I am not enough, the voice of shame that says I am too broken, the voice of fear that says I will never change. Let these voices lose their power. Father, drowned out by the steady assurance of your word, teach me to recognize your voice, gentle yet strong, guiding me back whenever I wander. I also ask you to reshape how I see myself in daily life. Father, when I look in the mirror, let me see beyond flaws and notice the beauty of your handiwork. When I fail, let me remember that failure is not identity. When I succeed, let me remember that success does not add worth, it only reveals what you already placed within me. When others misunderstand me, let me rest in the knowledge that you understand fully. Father, reclaiming my identity in you does not only change how I see myself, it changes how I live. When I believe I am chosen, I walk with confidence. When I believe I am loved, I extend love more freely. When I believe I am forgiven, I live without chains. When I believe I am called, I step forward with courage. Identity reclaimed becomes the foundation for a life renewed. I pray also for those around me who struggle with worth, for the one who feels invisible. Remind them they are seen. For the one who feels unloved, surround them with tangible care. For the one who feels defined by failure, show them that grace still speaks louder. Let the freedom of identity spread beyond me, reaching hearts that have been crushed by lies and restoring them to truth. Father, let today mark a shift in how I walk. Let me no longer bend under the weight of false names. Let me no longer wander searching for belonging in fragile places. Let me stand firm in the reality that I am yours, and that this alone is enough. I do not need to prove my worth to earn what has already been given. I do not need to strive for acceptance when I am already accepted. I do not need to create identity when it was spoken over me before I ever drew breath. Dear Heavenly Father, I rise this morning in freedom, in dignity, in renewed confidence. Forgiveness has opened the door, and now identity reclaimed sets me on solid ground. I will walk through this day as one who belongs, as one who is secure, as one who is loved. I carry this truth into every interaction, every decision, every moment. I am not who the world says I am. I am not who fear says I am. I am who you say I am. And in that truth I find strength to keep moving forward. Father, now that I have reclaimed who I am in you, I realize there is still something I keep holding, something heavy, silent, and sharp. Though I have stepped into truth, some wounds still whisper beneath it. Father, I do not want to carry the weight of what hurts any longer. I do not want my identity to be held hostage by the echoes of pain. You did not create me to live burdened by what once broke me. So here I am, asking you to help me release what still clenches tightly inside. Father, it is not always the loud traumas that linger. Sometimes it is the quiet cuts moments others missed, but I could never forget the way someone's silence made me feel small, the look that told me I was not enough, the words that seemed harmless but sank deep. These wounds, though old, still bleed when touched. They hide behind smiles and strength, but you see them, and you never ask me to pretend they are not there. You invite me instead to bring them to you. There are memories I do not like revisiting, Father, but they visit me at night, in conversations. During solitude, they slip in without knocking. I have tried to ignore them, suppress them, outrun them, but they do not dissolve on their own. So this morning, I choose to face them with you. I choose not to heal in isolation. I choose not to carry this pain like a badge or a burden. I choose to let you do what only you can do, touch the ache without judgment, mend the soul without force. Letting go of what hurts does not mean it did not matter. It means I trust you to carry the meaning. I trust you to carry the justice, the questions, and the why. I trust that you see more than the surface, that you understand every piece of the story no one else knows. You do not rush me, Father. You do not demand closure on a schedule. But you do offer something better: presence, healing, and grace that holds until I am ready to loosen my grip. This morning, Father, I lay before you what I have been carrying in secret. I name the losses that still sting, the people I miss but can't reach, the relationships that ended without explanation, the betrayals I did not see coming, the failures that still haunt my confidence. I name them not to dwell, but to finally begin releasing them. I do not want my heart to grow around bitterness or fear. I want to be whole, even if that wholeness includes a scar. You remind me, Father, that healing is not forgetting, it is remembering without reliving. It is being able to speak of the wound without it reopening. It is finding peace in a place that once only held pain. And I believe you are leading me there, even if it is slow, even if it is uneven, even if some mornings hurt more than others. Still, I believe you are patient with me, and in that patience, I find courage to trust the process. I ask you to show me what it looks like to truly let go, not to suppress or deny, but to release with intention. Help me unclench my fists where I have held resentment. Help me breathe deeply where anxiety has taken root. Help me cry when I need to, without shame. Help me forgive not just others, but also myself, for the moments I did not speak up, for the boundaries I did not set, for the versions of myself I am still grieving. Father, letting go includes compassion. Let it begin with how I speak to my own heart. I also ask you, Father, to redeem what hurt me. I do not need you to erase the past. I need you to reshape it. Turn what broke me into something that softens me. Turn what shamed me into wisdom I can pass to others. Turn what isolated me into compassion that reaches out. Let no pain be wasted in your hands. Let even my most tender places become spaces where others feel safe to heal too. Father, I want to love without fear again, to hope without bracing for loss, to trust without suspicion. Letting go of what hurts does not mean I erase boundaries or forget lessons, but it does mean I live with open hands. I want to hold joy again without waiting for it to disappear. I want to walk freely without dragging the weight of what cannot be changed. I want to look forward without always glancing behind. This morning, Father, I choose to give you everything I have hidden, the questions that never found answers, the prayers that did not get the outcome I wanted, the dreams that did not unfold the way I hoped. I bring you the H of unfinished stories and unresolved endings, and I trust that even in their silence, you are still working something beautiful. You are the God who brings life from ashes, peace from chaos, and beauty from broken things. So I breathe deeply today. I will not rush this healing, but I will no longer resist it. I will no longer pretend that I am fine when I am bleeding. I will no longer judge myself for the time it takes. I will wake up each morning and place my hurt in your hands again and again, until my hands are finally light enough to rise in praise instead of pain. Father, it feels strange waking up without the same weight pressing against my chest. Not because the world has changed overnight, but because something within me has quietly shifted. Yesterday, I placed into your hands what I have held for too long, my hurt. my questions, my regrets. And today, I find myself standing in a rare quiet, a silence not of emptiness but of release. It is not loud or triumphant. It is not made of flashing signs or clear outcomes. It is simply stillness. And in this stillness, I sense you nearer than ever. There is a kind of quiet that follows true surrender, not the silence of avoidance, but the calm that comes after letting go. It does not shout or rush. It does not demand resolution or perform miracles for applause. It simply rests. It allows the heart to stop fighting, to stop bracing, to stop spinning in anxious circles. Father, this stillness feels unfamiliar, almost vulnerable. I have grown so used to chaos and striving that peace feels foreign. But you are patient, even in peace. You do not rush me to adjust. You simply invite me to remain here for a while. This stillness is not empty space, it is presence. It is where my need no longer drowns out your voice. It is where my questions grow quiet enough for trust to grow. It is where I stop rehearsing all the worst-case scenarios and begin to notice the gentle evidence of your care. A sunrise that keeps showing up. A breath that fills without effort. A whisper of calm that does not come from understanding, but from simply being held. Father, I used to believe that surrender meant giving up, but now I see that surrender is what finally allows me to live. To release control is not to lose myself, but to come back to the part of me that remembers. I was never meant to carry everything alone. You are not asking me to vanish into the background of my life. You are asking me to rest into your presence. Knowing I do not have to orchestrate every outcome. The stillness after surrender is not the absence of motion. It is the birth of alignment, my spirit with yours, my pace with your rhythm, my will with your wisdom. It is where striving gives way to trusting, where performing gives way to simply being, where noise gives way to knowing I am seen without explanation. Father, teach me how to stay in this stillness, even when the world pulls at me to rush again, when the to-do lists scream louder than my soul, when expectations knock at the door before the day has even started. Remind me that stillness is not a weakness. It is a sacred pause, a holy resistance to the frenzy that tells me I must earn my worth. In this stillness, I learn to listen, to notice the quiet parts of myself that have long been silenced, the dreams I tucked away, the gentle desires I brushed aside, the fragile hopes I thought were too soft to survive. You do not demand I shout them into existence. You invite me to place them before you, gently, patiently, knowing that you will tend to them in your time. This stillness is not the end of movement. It is where all true movement begins. When I stop trying to make things happen by my own strength, I become more available to your guidance. When I stop wrestling with outcomes, I begin to notice the signs you have been placing along my path all along. A word spoken at the right moment. A door that opens without effort. A no that protects me from something I could not see. Father, help me not to fill this stillness with distractions. Not every quiet moment needs noise to feel real. Help me resist the urge to numb the discomfort of rest with endless activity. Let this stillness not be a place I pass through quickly, but a space I return to often, a sacred chamber where I meet you without needing to achieve anything. In the stillness after surrender, I am learning how to be, not to fix, not to prove, not to impress, but to exist, honestly and wholly, before you. And in that being, I find what I have long searched for, peace not dependent on outcomes, joy not borrowed from circumstances, and strength that rises from surrender rather than struggle. You are not only the God who acts, you are the God who abides. You do not only move mountains, you also sit with the weary beside still waters. You do not only part seas, you also whisper in the gentle breeze. Teach me, Father, to value your quiet, just as I have learned to chase your power. Teach me to cherish the comfort of your closeness, even when there are no signs and wonders. Today, I choose not to rush ahead. I choose not to fill the silence with fear. I choose not to panic in the pause. Instead, I receive this stillness as a gift. I trust that what you begin in silence will bloom in season, that what you do beneath the surface is never wasted, that waiting with you is never passive, is active trust. It is worship without words. So as I begin this new day, I carry this stillness with me not as something fragile I must protect, but as something alive that will protect me. It will remind me to breathe, to pause, to listen, to yield, and above all, to remember that even in stillness, I am never alone. Father, the stillness you invited me into has become more than a resting place. It has become a lens. Through it, I begin to see differently not just the world around me, but the inner landscape of my soul. I am noticing the edges of my striving, the way I have measured worth by exhaustion, the way I have mistaken noise for progress. In this quiet space, you have not demanded anything of me. You have simply offered grace, and I am beginning to understand that grace is not only forgiveness. It is strength, a strength I did not expect, because it does not roar. It does not come in flashes or force. It comes gently, like water seeping through stone, changing everything slowly but completely. This grace you extend is not weakness, not softness in the fragile sense. It is a quiet force that holds steady when everything else shakes. It is what keeps me standing when I feel unworthy. It is what whispers you are still mine when I have stumbled again. Grace is not the denial of my limits, but the embrace of them. It is not the expectation that I will never fall. It is the assurance that when I do, I will not be left behind. Father, I have often believed that I needed to be strong in ways that looked like perfection. But you are showing me a different kind of strength, the kind that allows space for failure, sorrow, and slow growth. Grace does not rush me. It walks beside me. It does not shame my weakness. It meets me there and becomes my courage. This is not the kind of strength the world applauds. It does not draw crowds. It won trend. But it restores what has quietly crumbled inside. You know how often I have tried to earn what can only be received. I have worn myself thin, trying to be enough for everyone, trying to explain away my faults, trying to hide the parts of me that felt unworthy. But grace has a way of stepping into the places I have closed off. It comes without a list of conditions. It does not demand I tidy myself up before I am allowed to rest. It steps into the room as it is and stays. That staying changes me more than any pressure ever could. The strength of grace is in its constancy. While emotions shift and my confidence wavers, your grace remains. When I wake up unsure, when I fall back into old patterns, when I forget what I said, I would remember grace does not flinch. It does not withdraw. It comes again, steady and sure, as if to say, "This is not about your record. This is about my love." That truth softens me, but also steels me. It gives me the resilience to rise, again and again, knowing I'm not disqualified by my weakness. Father, your grace is not just for the moments I fail. It is also for the moments I fear I will. It is the cushion beneath risk, the net beneath obedience, the comfort that says I can show up even when I do not feel strong. Because this strength is not rooted in me, it is rooted in you. And you are not shaken. There is a gentleness in grace that teaches me how to be kind to myself. It reminds me that progress is not always loud. Healing is not always linear. Some days, strength looks like showing up tired. Other days, it looks like choosing rest when I would rather push through. Grace does not rank my days by achievement. It counts each one sacred when walked with you. When I forget how to speak kindly to myself, when I see only where I have fallen short, help me remember that you see me through the lens of grace. You are not disappointed in my process. You are not embarrassed by my need. You do not roll your eyes at my slowness. You rejoice that I have come. You delight in the turning of my heart. However small, you are patient in the waiting. You celebrate the beginning, not only the arrival. This grace transforms how I see others too. The more I receive it, the less I feel the need to judge. The more I taste its sweetness, the more I long to extend it. Grace does not excuse harm, but it makes space for healing. It does not forget truth, but it refuses to weaponize it. It does not deny accountability, but it offers a path forward that begins with love, not shame. Father, you are not a tyrant waiting for me to mess up. You are not tallying my failures behind a curtain. You are not comparing me to someone else's highlight reel. You are here, now, reminding me that grace is the foundation beneath all of this. That I do not have to perform for your affection. That I do not have to strive to stay in your favor. I am already home. Let your grace be the filter through which I see this day. When I am tempted to rush, let grace slow me. When I feel the pull to prove myself, let grace remind me I am already held. When I stumble into old insecurities, let grace lift my head. When I reach for comparison, let grace lead me back to the truth. I am not behind. I am not too much. I am not too late. I am right where I need to be, because you are with me. So I breathe in now, deeply, letting grace fill the places where shame once echoed. I let it reach the tender parts, the weary parts, the parts still waiting for a voice that says, "You are not too broken to be loved." That voice is yours. That grace is yours, and it is enough not just to carry me, but to reshape me from the inside out. Father, the grace you wrapped around me yesterday is still lingering this morning like a soft echo in my chest. It did not vanish with the night. It settled deeper, made room in the hollow places I would avoided, and whispered that brokenness is not the end of the story. As I sit with that truth now, I feel you drawing me gently into something more, into the quiet but profound work of rebuilding, not with pressure, not with demands, but with tenderness. From the inside out, there is a strange kind of courage required to rebuild, not the courage to climb mountains or stand in front of crowds, but the quiet bravery to look inward and not turn away. To survey the cracks and say, "This is where I begin again." I used to think restoration came from fixing everything visible, from putting my outer life in perfect order. But you are showing me that the real work happens in places no one sees: the inner architecture of belief, trust, and identity. That is where you are kneeling beside me now, not to shame what collapsed, but to help me build something honest and lasting. Father, you are not asking me to pretend that nothing fell apart. You are not denying the rubble. You are inviting me to walk through it slowly, to pick up what still matters, and to let go of what no longer does. You are not offering a blueprint built on perfection, but on truth, on who I am when no one is watching, and on who you are when everything else shifts. There are parts of me that have been shaped by survival, not by peace. Reactions built like walls, assumptions framed like armor. But in your presence, I do not have to live defensively. I do not have to hold everything together on my own. You are the foundation beneath the rebuilding. Not my plans, not my timeline, not my willpower. Just you, steady, patient, and unshakably kind. It is easy to want quick results, to rush the healing, to patch the cracks with distraction. But you are not interested in false progress. You are after wholeness, even if it takes time. And so, I am learning to stay in the discomfort of not having everything figured out, to stay in the process of unlearning what hurt me, to stay present in the messy, sacred act of becoming, not rushing past it, not skipping the steps, but trusting that every day with you is part of the rebuilding, even the ones that feel slow or silent. You do not rebuild with shame. You build with mercy. You do not stack up expectations. You lay down peace. You are not shouting commands from a distance. You are here, sleeves rolled up, heart wide open, whispering, "Let us begin again." That image undoes me, because I know I have handed you more ruins than I would like to admit. And still, you have never walked away. Some days I feel the strength returning. Other days, I only feel the weight of what is missing. But even then, you are near. You remind me that progress is not linear, that nothing is wasted, and that every tear I have cried waters something sacred. You are growing things I cannot yet see. You are restoring in ways I do not yet understand. And even in this middle place where I am no longer who I was, but not yet who I am becoming, you are here, building beauty in the in-between. Father, I have spent years trying to prove my worth by what I could produce, how I could perform, or how well I could pretend, but none of that can sustain me. It is exhausting to live a life constructed on applause and approval. You are teaching me to build differently, to build slowly, deeply, and truthfully, to let my roots reach down into rest instead of reputation, to let my soul expand into peace instead of performance. That is the kind of rebuilding I need. Help me be patient with the process. When the old frameworks no longer hold, let me not panic but pause. When the familiar patterns no longer serve, let me not retreat but realign. And when I am tempted to give up, remind me of all the mornings you met me with fresh mercy. Remind me that you did not bring me this far to abandon the project. You are not done, not with me, not with any of it. Let today be another step, not flashy, not loud, but steady, another brick placed with grace, another moment of courage, another whisper of hope where fear used to echo. Let me be more aware of my inner world than the chaos outside. Let me honor the small shifts, the softened thought, the kinder response, the surrendered control. These are the signs that you are rebuilding something real. May I not despise the days of small beginnings. May I trust that unseen progress is still progress. May I believe that the work doing in me is just as sacred as the miracles I long to see around me. The healing, the restoration, the rebuilding, it starts here, in this quiet moment of surrender. And it continues, brick by brick, morning by morning, with your hands holding mine. So I breathe in deeply now, not to escape but to enter in, to return to the foundation of love that does not shift beneath my feet, to remember that I am not a project, I am a person, beloved and becoming. That what is being rebuilt in me is not just for me, is for the way I will show up in this world, with softness where there once was hardness, with peace where there once was fear, with hope where there once was silence. And if all I can do today is keep building with you, one quiet yes at a time, then let that be enough. Father, this morning I wake not with usual rush of clarity, but with something quieter, something slower. It feels like the echo of yesterday's hope is fading into the stillness, and I am left with questions that hover without answers. It is not that I doubt you are here. It is that I cannot hear you, not in the way I usually do. And yet, maybe this silence is not absence. Maybe this quiet is something sacred too. I carry with me the memory of rebuilding from yesterday, the slow courage of saying yes to wholeness. But now I step into a day where your voice seems to retreat into the background. The stillness feels unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. I want to believe that you are still near, even when I do not feel the warmth of your nearness. I want to trust that your silence is not withdrawal, but invitation to listen deeper, to wait longer, to learn stillness without fear. You have never promised constant noise. You have never said you would always answer quickly. You are not a machine of responses or a vending box of blessings. You are a presence, a mystery, a love that goes beyond my senses. So maybe what I feel right now is not abandonment, but the hush before something beautiful begins to take form. Maybe your silence is not empty, but full of the things I cannot yet understand. Teach me how to rest here, not to panic when heaven feels quiet, not to interpret silence as rejection. Let me sit in the hush with open hands, trusting that you are still moving even when you are not speaking. Just because I cannot hear your voice does not mean you are not writing the next chapter. Just because my prayers feel like whispers into a void does not mean they are not being gathered and held. There is a kind of faith that thrives in celebration, when the signs are clear and the path is obvious. But there is another kind, the quiet kind, the one that roots itself not in sound, but in trust. And that is the kind I need today. Not a faith that needs to feel you to believe you, but one that leans in anyway, one that stays when the room goes still. I think about all the mornings I have felt carried, seen, affirmed by little signs of verse, a song, sense of direction. But this morning I am learning to worship without those things. I am learning that sometimes the most powerful faith is the one that waits in silence and still whispers yes. The one that does not demand evidence, but simply abides. So I bring you my honest thoughts, not polished or poetic, but real. I bring you my uncertainty, my ache for clarity, my quiet longing for assurance, and I place them before you like open hands. I am not asking for loud miracles today. I am asking for the strength to keep walking when the map disappears. I am asking for the grace to stay present even when I cannot perceive progress. You are not punishing me with silence. You are forming something in it. You are teaching me to hear in different frequencies, not just in words, but in stillness, not just in outcomes, but in presence, not just in answers, but in peace. That kind of listening takes time. That kind of presence is deeper than noise. It cannot be rushed or replicated. Father, I want to believe that even the silence has purpose, that you are closer than my breath even when I feel alone, that in the very moment I feel most forgotten, I am actually being remembered in the most tender way, not with lightning bolts or shouts, but with the slow, sacred patience of love. Let me lean on the evidence of your past faithfulness when the present feels unclear. Let the memory of your goodness become the anchor when my emotions try to drift. Remind me of all the times you came through, not always how I expected, but always how I needed. Remind me that your ways are not my ways. And sometimes the silence is part of the shaping. Help me not to rush out of this quiet. Let me not run to distraction or noise just to feel something. Instead, let me stay long enough to hear the heartbeat of stillness, to remember that silence is where seeds grow, that still waters run deep, that the absence of sound is not the absence of you. I will not label this season as void. I will name it sacred. I will trust that even when I cannot trace your voice, I can trace your character. You are still good, still present, still God, even when the heavens feel hushed, even when my heart stretches into the void for a whisper. You are still here. Maybe this is how deeper roots grow. Maybe this is how endurance is built not in the easy answers, but in the slow trust. And maybe this is how love deepens, not when it is constantly spoken, but when it is known without words. So I will sit here, not passively, but with quiet expectation. I will breathe in faith like air, invisible but sustaining. I will walk through this day not demanding signs, but watching for subtleties. The way the light hits the table, the rhythm of my own breath, the small, steady reminders that life continues, and so does grace. And if the only sound I hear today is my own heartbeat, let it be a reminder that I am alive for a reason. That silence is not the end of the story. That sometimes, before the next word is spoken, there is a holy pause, and in that pause, something sacred unfolds. Father, I sit with you again this morning, carrying yesterday's stillness like a fragile stone cupped in my hands. The silence did not crush me. It stretched me. It asked me to wait without panic, to remain without answers, to believe without hearing. And somehow, even in that hush, something sacred held me. But today, I need to reach backward, not out of fear, but out of faith. I need to remember, not everything that matters shouts. Some things whisper through memory, so I return. Father, not to relive the past, but to gather the pieces of your presence woven through it. I need to remind my soul what my heart sometimes forgets, that you have always been faithful, even when I could not name it in the moment. That the quiet seasons have not erased your goodness, only deepened it. That remembering is not clinging but anchoring. When I could not see the way, you lit just enough of the path to take one more step. When I doubted myself, you whispered identity beneath the noise of failure. When I was afraid, you sent courage disguised as a friend, a line of a song, the flicker of light on a hard morning. These were not coincidences. They were markers, sacred evidence that I was never walking alone. I remember the times when the mountain seemed immovable, but the strength came to climb it. I remember the nights when I thought the tears would never stop, and yet the morning still came. I remember the wounds I thought would never heal, the losses I thought would undo me, the endings I could not understand, but you stayed. And somehow, so did I. Memory is a kind of worship, is not it? Not just the big stories, but the small moments too. The breath that returned when I thought I could not keep going, the forgiveness I did not expect, the laughter after long stretches of silence, the second chances, the sudden peace, the doors that opened even after I stopped knocking. Each one a reminder that your grace is not a one-time event, it is a rhythm. Let me not forget, let me be one who remembers on purpose, because forgetting is easy when life feels fast. But remembering roots me. It teaches me to see the sacred in the ordinary, the holy in the overlooked. And in remembering, I find myself again not just who I was, but who you have been shaping me to be all along. Help me trace the timeline of grace across my life, not to worship the past, but to recognize your fingerprints in it. Let me gather these memories like stones in a river, smooth from time, but sharp with testimony. When the current pulls at my faith, I want to stand on what I know, not just what I feel. There is strength in remembering, strength that quiets fear, strength that steadies shaking hands, strength that speaks when the heart forgets its own words. And sometimes, the greatest gift is not a new miracle, but the reminder of an old one that still echoes with power. Sometimes, the healing begins by recalling that I have been here before and I made it through. So today, as I face what is unknown, I bring with me what is known. I bring the history of our walk together. I bring in true truth that I have survived storms thought would swallow me. I bring the awareness that peace has found me in the middle of chaos more than once, that joy has returned, even when I thought it had packed up and left forever. That hope has been reborn, not because everything changed, but because I remembered that you never did. I do not want to live with spiritual amnesia, forgetting every time you have proven yourself faithful. I want to mark the pages of my story with the ink of gratitude, to write down the things that mattered, even if no one else saw them. I want to live as one who remembers and therefore trusts not blindly, but with eyes wide open to the evidence you have already given. And not only for me, let me carry stories for others too. Let me speak the reminders when someone else forgets. Let me be the voice that says, "You are not alone. I have seen this before, and I have seen God in it." Let the power of remembering ripple outward. Let it become testimony. Let it become comfort. Let it become strength for someone else's weary soul. Even the moments that hurt have taught me. Even the prayers that were not answered how I hoped have shaped me. And now, looking back, I can see what I thought was silence was sometimes preparation. What I thought was delay was often protection. What I thought was the end was only a turn in the path. So I do not need to know everything about tomorrow. I have enough from yesterday to walk forward. I have the memory of mercy, the story of survival, the truth of transformation. I carry not just wounds, but wisdom, not just pain, but perspective, not just questions, but a quiet kind of knowing. And when the day gets loud and my mind starts to race, and the world tries to blur what matters, bring me back, not to relive the past, but to draw from its deep well. Remind me again what you have done. Remind me who you have been. Remind me what I have already overcome. Remind me that faith is not rooted in feelings, but in history, in truth, in the unchanging nature of who you are. Father, I remember. Not perfectly, not always easily, but intentionally. I remember to breathe, to trust, to lift my eyes. I remember that even when I forget you, you never forget me. Even when I wander, you remain. Even when my faith feels small, your love stays vast. This is not nostalgia. This is worship. This is building my day on what has already held me. This is not a backward glance to escape the present, but a grounded return that gives me courage to keep going. Because I do not walk into this morning empty-handed. I walk in holding memory like a torch, lighting the way forward with the glow of what has already been. Father, I return to you this morning, still carrying the quiet strength of yesterday's remembering. My heart feels steadier, my breath more centered, my thoughts less tangled. Reflecting on your faithfulness gave me something deeper than comfort. It gave me clarity. And now, I want to linger a little longer in this sacred space of memory, not to dwell in what was, but to draw even more deeply from what it gave me. Because, Father, remembering you is not a backward act. It is the way I move forward with intention. When life overwhelms, my natural instinct is to rush, to fix, to solve. But when I pause to remember what you have already done, I am reminded that movement does not always begin with action. Sometimes it begins with stillness, with reverence, with opening my hands again and saying, I have seen enough of your goodness to trust you once more. It is amazing how the act of remembering rewrites the story. I tell myself, when I forget, fear takes center stage. But when I remember, perspective returns. The mountain that looked impossible begins to resemble the ones I have already climbed. The silence that felt unbearable becomes familiar terrain. Where I have met you before, the grief that threatened to consume me is softened by the memory that joy eventually found its way back to me. So, I gather more stones today, like the ones the Israelites laid by the river after they crossed. Not because they needed to prove something to you, but because they needed to remind themselves that you had made a way through what should have drowned them. I want my heart to be that kind of altar where memory meets worship and turns ordinary moments into holy ground. Let me remember not just the rescue, but the process. Not just the answered prayer, but the waiting that taught me how to listen. Not just the provision, but the hunger that made me appreciate the gift. You are not just the God of outcomes. You are the God of in-betweens, of slow healings, of gentle nudges, of unseen protection. Sometimes the miracle was not what changed, but who I became while waiting for it. And Father, I do not want to remember only when I am in crisis. Teach me to remember in the quiet, on the good days, in the ordinary rhythms of life. Let gratitude become the default setting of my soul, not because life is always easy, but because you are always present. Help me practice remembrance like breathing, not as an effort, but as an instinct. There are moments I almost forgot the ones tucked away in journals, in conversations, in tears that dried quietly. But now, when I look back with care, I see your thread running through them all. I see how you whispered through fatigue, how you strengthened me in the very places I thought I was breaking. I see how even the detours were part of the design. Even the no's were mercy. Even the delays were doors to something better. Help me not to romanticize the past or sanitize the pain, but to remember with honesty, to hold both the H and the beauty together, without needing to resolve them, because you do not only exist in the polished chapters, you dwell in the raw ones too. You were there in the fractured sentences, in the unanswered questions, in the late-night pleadings. And somehow, you turn those pages too. I want to become a person who lives in rhythm with remembering, who does not chase every new thing out of restlessness, but walks steadily because of the unshackable things I already know. I want to carry memory like a sacred flame protected from the winds of doubt, fed by truth, shared in community. Let me speak the stories of your faithfulness, not as monuments of pride, but as signposts of grace. Sometimes I fear that I will forget again, that the next storm will erase what I have come to trust. But even that fear, too, can be held in remembering, because you have reminded me before. You have found me in my forgetting. You have called me back to myself when I was lost in my own mind. You are not just the God who showed up once. Long ago, you are the God who keeps showing up over and over again when shame tries to rewrite my story. Help me remember who you say I am. When doubt clouds the view, let memory clear a path. When I feel small and insignificant, remind me of the impact of the small acts that once changed everything. When I feel unseen, bring to mind every moment you paid attention to what others missed. Even today, Father, I know there will be moments when I am tempted to forget, when tasks pile up, when voices rush in, when anxiety tightens its grip, but plant a seed of memory inside me that grows louder than the noise. Let it become a refrain that sings beneath the chaos. Let it be a thread I can pull when everything else unravels. Memory is not nostalgia. It is not living in the past. It is lighting today with the flame of what you have already done. And in that light, fear loses its grip, confusion loses its sting, and I begin to see this present moment not as a blank page, but as a continuation of a sacred story. So I will keep gathering the pieces, the lines of old prayers, the taste of unexpected peace, the sound of a whispered answer, the strength that came when I had none, the love that wrapped me up when I could not hold myself together. I will store them in the corners of my heart, not to hoard, but to remind, to steady, to believe again. Because remembering is not just looking back, it is leaning forward, with eyes open, with heart awake, with soul grounded. It is saying, God has been faithful, and He will be faithful still. It is standing on what was so I can step into what is with boldness. It is breathing in gratitude so I can breathe out courage. And if ever I forget again, Father, remind me, gently, persistently, lovingly. Whisper my own story back to me until I can hear the truth again, until memory becomes trust, and trust becomes worship, and worship becomes the way I live this day, not in fear, but in faith that has been shaped by the power of remembering. Father, as I come to you again this morning, I carry not just the memories of what has been healed, but the weight of what still aches. Yesterday, I leaned into remembering your goodness, your nearness, your faithfulness. And now, that same light of memory gently touches the places I have kept hidden, the places where pain still pulses softly beneath the surface, the places I have tried to ignore, cover, or make sense of, but you see them, even when I do not speak of them. You know where it hurts. So today, Father, I ask for the courage not just to remember, but to release, to begin the quiet, sacred work of letting go, not to erase what has happened, not to deny that it mattered, but to offer the pain to you instead of carrying it alone. Because holding on to what wounds me does not make me stronger. It only makes me tired. And you never asked me to bear what you already offered to carry. Some hurts are sharp and obvious betrayals, losses, cruel words that still echo. Others are subtle and slow disappointments, unmet expectations, tiny wounds that accumulate until they feel unbearable, and some pain. Father, is so deeply rooted I have forgotten what it felt like before it was there. It shaped how I see the world, how I speak to myself, how I trust others. It shaped how I see you. But you are not the author of my wounds. You are the one who writes new endings. And letting go, I am beginning to see, is not about forgetting, it is about loosening my grip on what I cannot fix. It is about surrendering my right to understand everything, and instead trusting that you understand me. You know why it hurt. You know how long I have carried it. You know the cost of holding on. There are pieces of pain I have built my identity around, stories I have told myself to make sense of rejection, to protect myself from more. But those stories have become walls, and you are gently inviting me to lay down the bricks, not all at once. Not forcefully, but with grace, with tenderness, with the promise that I will not be empty without them. I will be free. Letting go, Father, does not mean I stop caring. It means I stop clinging. It does not mean the wound was insignificant. It means I no longer let it define my worth. It does not mean the person who hurt me was right. It means I trust you to be the judge, not me. And in that release, I find space to breathe, space to begin again. But even now, I confess it is not easy. Some pain feels justified, even sacred, like proof of what I have survived. And there is comfort in the familiar etch. There is predictability in the sorrow I have carried for so long. What if I let go and feel lost without it? What if forgiveness feels too generous, or healing too far away? That is why I need you. Father, I do not want to do this alone. I do not want to force a release before I am ready. I want to trust you with the process, to believe that when I open my hands, you will not leave them empty. That when I surrender control, you will not leave me adrift. That when I stop rehearsing the pain, you will give me something better to remember. Help me, Lord, to name what still hurts, to sit honestly with the weight of it, without minimizing or exaggerating. Let truth become the beginning of healing. Let honesty replace shame. Let clarity quiet the confusion. And then, in that stillness, teach me to let go not out of strength, but out of trust. I lay before you the grudge I have carried, the bitterness I have fed, the self-blame I have repeated like a mantra. I lay down the resentment I nurtured like armor, the envy that crept in unnoticed, the guilt I never quite released. And I know, in this sacred act of release, you are not disappointed in how long it took me. You are just glad I came. Sometimes, Father, I do not even know what I am still holding. It shows up in restlessness, in fatigue, in a short temper, in the inability to feel joy fully. Would you search me gently and show me what is ready to be released? Would you help me recognize what I have normalized, but you never intended me to carry? Would you breathe peace into the places that have forgotten how to exhale? I do not want to keep rearranging my pain. I want to hand it over, not as a transaction, but as a trust fall. I want to give it to the one who does not waste suffering, the one who brings beauty from brokenness, the one who heals in layers and loves through every stage of healing. And as I let go, teach me how to live lighter, to stop replaying what I cannot rewrite, to stop seeking closure from people who may never understand, to stop defining myself by the wounds I have endured, and instead define myself by the love that holds me now. Father, remind me that letting go does not mean I will never feel the H again, but it does mean the H1T have power over me. It means I will choose grace when bitterness knocks. I will choose compassion when anger resurfaces. I will choose you when everything in me wants to choose control. Thank you for being patient, for not rushing me, for seeing the timeline of my healing and still calling me beloved in every phase. Thank you for being the kind of God who does not need me to be fine, but simply available, open, willing. Today, I take a small step toward release. I open my hand a little more. I loosen my grip on what I thought I needed to survive. I believe that you will catch what I let fall, and I trust that what comes next, even if I do not see it yet, will be shaped by healing, not hurt, because you are not just the God who remembers with me. You are the God who removes what no longer serves me. You prune with precision. You clear the clutter so new life can grow, and I choose this morning to say yes to that new life, even if it begins with letting go of what I once clung to so tightly. Father, I am still here, still learning what it means to let go not just once, but daily, moment by moment, thought by thought. Yesterday, I opened my hands. Today, I find myself reaching for what I released, out of habit, out of fear, out of longing. It is strange how even pain can feel like home when it has lived in me for so long, but you are calling me forward, gently, patiently, into a new space that no longer revolves around what broke me. Letting go, I am realizing, is not a single decision, it is a rhythm of release and trust, of loosening and leaning, surrendering and remembering what I now belong to. And while I once thought letting go was about strength, I now see it as mostly about safety. It is only in knowing I am safe with you that I can begin to let down my guard, to unclench my fists, to allow what hurt me to no longer hold me. Some hurts are slow to leave. They echo at unexpected moments, in the pause between conversations, in the quiet before sleep, in the familiar corners of my heart that still feel tender. I do not always recognize them until I react in ways that surprise me with distance, with silence, with defensiveness, with tears I can't explain. But even then, you are not frustrated with me. You are simply inviting me to bring those echoes back to you again and again until they fade into grace. And so, Father, I bring them now. I bring the sharp pang of what was unfair. I bring the deep disappointment in people I trusted. I bring the loneliness that followed when no one noticed the fracture. I bring the memories I try not to revisit, but that visit me nonetheless. I bring the words that still sting, the silence that still confuses, the questions that remain unanswered. I place them before you, not because I need closure from the world, but because I need comfort from you. I used to think healing required explanation, that I needed to understand why it happened, how it happened, who was right or wrong. But you are teaching me that peace does not come from having all the answers. It comes from resting in the one who does, and in this quiet space with you, I do not need explanations to exhale. I just need your presence, steady and sure. Letting go does not mean I forget what I have learned. It means I carry the wisdom without carrying the weight. It means I can honor my past without reliving it. It means I can remember the pain without rehearsing the harm. And maybe that is the miracle, learning to hold the lesson while releasing the wound. Sometimes the hardest part is not the initial release, but what comes after the empty space. The part where I feel unanchored, unsure, exposed. The part where the silence feels louder than the suffering. But you are in the silence, too. You meet me there, not with condemnation, but with compassion. You remind me that emptiness is not the end. It is the beginning of renewal. So I will not fear the quiet after letting go. I will not rush to fill the space with noise or distraction or new burdens to carry. I will let it breathe. I will let it heal. I will let it make room for something deeper. Something true, because what you are building in me requires space, and what you are teaching me is trust. There are still parts of me that want to hold on, parts that whisper, what if it happens again? Or what if I need this pain to protect myself? But you are whispering louder. You are already protected. You are already loved. You are already mine. And that changes everything. That silences the fear and strengthens the release. Help me forgive what I thought I could not because it excuses what was done, but because it frees me from being tethered to it. Help me extend grace where there is still tension, not to avoid truth, but to allow truth to be spoken in love. Help me untangle my identity from the wounds I have worn like badges, and instead root my worth in the kindness you speak over me every day. I want to be someone who walks light, who does not drag yesterday into today, who greets the morning with open hands and a soft heart. I want to live unburdened, not because life is easy, but because love is enough. And you, Father, are the source of that love. You are the one who holds what I let go. You are the one who holds me when I am not ready to release it all yet. Let this day be another step. Let this morning be another moment where I choose freedom over fear, release over resentment, hope over heaviness. Let my story be marked not just by what I have overcome, but by how I have surrendered. Let others see in me a quiet strength, not forged in bitterness, but born in letting go. And when I feel the old ache rising again, as it sometimes does, remind me that healing is not linear. It circles and returns, not to torment, but to invite deeper freedom. Remind me that it is okay to feel it again, as long as I do not feed it, as long as I do not let it take the place you now occupy. Father, thank you for walking with me through this slow undoing, for not rushing me into healing, but walking me into wholeness, for holding the pieces I did not know how to name, for loving me even when I was still holding on to things you knew were hurting me. Today, I say yes again. Yes to the process. Yes to the discomfort. Yes to the growth. Yes to the peace that waits on the other side of surrender. I choose again to let go of what hurts. I choose again to believe that what you offer is better, because you are not just the God who understands pain. You are the God who transforms it. You are not just the God who sees my scars. You are the God who turns them into stories of grace. You are not just the God who asks me to let go. You are the God who gently takes what I cannot carry and leads me forward in love. Father, you are still here, and I am still unfolding. After all the letting go, all the surrendering, all the brave unclenching of what once kept me bound, I find myself now in unfamiliar space, free, but not yet fully formed. The pain has less hold on me, but so does the certainty. It is as if I have stepped beyond the walls of what hurt and into the open field of what could be. And though that openness feels light, it also feels unfamiliar. But perhaps that is what healing does. It brings us back to the starting point. Not the one where the pain began, but the one where possibility lives. Where hope is not a whisper on the edge of despair, but a quiet invitation to begin again. This time from a place of love instead of lack. And this morning, Father, I choose to accept that invitation. You are not asking me to rebuild with broken bricks. You are inviting me to begin with you as the foundation. You are not pushing me forward as if I must prove that I have grown. You are drawing me gently into a deeper stillness, where growth happens without announcement, like roots beneath the soil, like light just before dawn. I used to think healing was a finish line. Now I know it is a threshold, a place where I step forward not because everything is solved, but because I am no longer stuck. And while the world may expect performance and progress, you are simply asking for presence, to be here, to be real, to be willing. So here I am, with quiet courage and trembling grace, standing in the in-between. The past is behind me, but not erased. The future is before me, but not yet visible. And yet, you are in both places, healer of what was, holder of what will be. And in this present moment, you are enough. There is something holy about starting again. Something sacred about the choice to keep walking when it would be easier to settle in the ashes, to lift my eyes after they have been downcast for so long, to breathe in the new morning without waiting for something to go wrong. You are teaching me that beginnings are not naive. They are bold. They are defiant in the face of everything that tried to keep me from joy. Father, I want to begin again, not just with tasks or plans or dreams, but with my own heart. I want to learn how to trust love again, to risk tenderness again, to speak without apology, to show up without armor. I want to greet the world not with suspicion, but with quiet expectation that goodness still grows, that people still change, that my story is not finished. Some days I feel clumsy in this new place, like a bird learning to fly after years of being caged. I bump into fear. I flinch at kindness. I question moments of peace as if they cannot be real. But you, patient as ever, remind me I am not late, not lost, not too much. I am simply learning to live from a heart that is no longer hidden behind walls. There are parts of me that still hesitate, that still wonder if I am ready to begin again without falling back into old patterns. But you do not demand perfection. You only invite participation, a daily yes, a small step, a deep breath. You meet me in each one and whisper, "This is enough." And so I take one more step this morning, not into business, but into being, into believing again that this life, this very moment, not a test or a trap, but a tender offering, that I do not have to earn peace or prove worth or pretend strength, that I can simply receive what you have already made available: presence, grace, and the quiet courage to begin again. The world may not notice the shift. There will be no parade for this kind of healing, but you see, you celebrate every small turn of the heart, every time I choose softness over cynicism, every moment I return to hope instead of retreating to fear. That is the kind of victory you honor. That is the kind of strength you build. Let today be marked not by how much I accomplish, but by how open I am to love. Let this chapter be one of restoration, not as a reward, but as a rhythm. Let my voice carry kindness. Let my silence carry peace. Let my eyes see beauty where I once only saw brokenness. Let my soul remain uncluttered by what others expect, and anchored only in what you speak. And when I stumble, because I will, let it not undo the beginning. Let it remind me that grace does not expire, that failure does not void belonging, that your love does not flinch at my humanity. Let it be a pause, not a punishment, a gentle redirect, not a harsh rebuke. I do not know all the ways this new beginning will unfold. I do not know what it will ask of me, or what it will stretch in me. But I know you will not abandon me in it. I know you are the same faithful one who stayed through the undoing, and you will stay through the becoming. Father, thank you for this new breath, this new light, this new moment to believe again, to try again, to trust again, not because I am certain, but because I am held, not because it is easy, but because you are near. Let this be the day I walk with less fear, speak with more truth, and love with fewer conditions. I do not want to rush through this beginning. I want to linger in it, to gather the quiet lessons, to notice the gentle unfolding, to let it shape me slowly, honestly, beautifully. And when others begin again in their own stories, let me be the kind of person who does not judge their starting point, but celebrates their courage to try. We are all becoming. We are all healing. We are all learning to live without the weight we once carried. And maybe that is the grace of it all, not that we arrive, but that we rise, that we begin again, and again, and again with you. Father, here I am again. Another morning, another breath, another chance to walk forward, not in leaps, but in quiet steps. Yesterday, I stood on the threshold of beginning again. Today, I ask for the grace to continue, to stay with what I have started, even when it feels slow, even when no one sees, even when the whispers of doubt begin to rise like morning fog. You know how easily my heart can grow restless, how the thrill of starting sometimes fades when discipline must take its place, how the fire of new hope can flicker when faced with the dull ache of ordinary days. But you are not calling me to grand gestures. You are inviting me to consistency, to show up not only when it is easy, but especially when it is hard, to remain rooted when everything in me wants to rush ahead or run away. You are the God of my beginnings, but also the God of my becoming. And becoming takes time. It takes patience. It takes a holy kind of persistence that chooses faithfulness over finish lines, that returns again and again to the quiet place where your voice still speaks and your presence still steadies me. I confess, Father, that I often want results more than refinement. I want transformation that is visible, measurable, celebrated, but you are working in the unseen, shaping the places no one else applauds. You are growing depth before display, roots before fruit, character before outcome. And while the world teaches me to chase speed, you are teaching me the sacred rhythm of staying. It is here, in the small and steady movements, that trust is built. Not trust in outcomes, but trust in you. That you are with me not only when things bloom, but also when the soil looks dry and nothing appears to be changing. That you are not waiting at the end of this journey with a reward, but walking with me through each moment as the reward itself. Sometimes I forget that growth is not linear, that healing is not a checklist, that peace does not always arrive with clarity. But you remind me that progress often looks like returning to the truth, to the breath, to the table you have prepared in the presence of my fears. Returning not because I failed, but because this is the way forward. Circling back to grace so that I do not drift into shame. Father, thank you for not rushing me, for not expecting me to have it all figured out, for being content with my honesty even when my hope feels thin. You are never annoyed with my neediness. You do not measure my worth by my momentum. You see the effort it takes just to stay soft in a world that often hardens us. And you call that brave. This morning, I bring you my ordinary, my tired, my halfway there. I bring you the part of me that still wonders if I am doing enough. Becoming enough, moving fast enough. And I lay it down, because enough was never the point. Union was. Connection was. Presence was. And that means you are already pleased. Already near. Already offering more than I knew to ask for. Teach me, Father, how to find joy in the process, how to hold space for both the victories and the valleys, how to celebrate the days that feel mundane, knowing they are not meaningless. Let me notice the subtle signs of grace, a softened reaction, a word unsaid, a moment of peace in the middle of pressure. These are seeds of change, holy and hidden. I do not want to miss what you are doing because I am waiting for something louder. Let me pay attention to the quiet ways you are transforming me. Through the patience I did not know I had. Through the mercy I extend when I could have chosen judgment. Through the pause before panic, the silence before speech. These are miracles too. Let me become someone who remains not out of obligation, because I have tasted the sweetness of being held in the slow seasons. Let my yes today echo louder than my doubts. Let my feet find rhythm in the repetition. Let my soul be satisfied not by what I accomplish, but by who I become in your presence. And when I grow weary, which I will, let that not be a sign of failure, but of effort. Let my weariness remind me that I am living awake, that I am engaging life instead of hiding from it, that I am offering my full heart to a process that cannot be rushed. I know now that continuing is not about striving. It is about abiding, about trusting the vine to nourish the branch, about leaning in when everything says pull away, about believing that the very act of continuing, of rising again, praying again, loving again is itself a kind of sacred defiance against despair. Father, let today be another chapter in the slow, beautiful story you are writing with my life. Not a story of perfection, but of perseverance. Not a story of arrival, but of alignment. Not a story of achievement, but of affection freely given and slowly received. When others feel discouraged in their own journeys, let me be a voice of reminder that it is okay to be in process, that worth is not tied to pace, that staying is sometimes the bravest thing we can do. And if all I offer today is a gentle, quiet continuation, then let that be enough, because you are in it. And when night comes and I look back on this day, may I see not a list of accomplishments, but a trail of small obediences, each one a reminder that I stayed, that I listened, that I kept walking even when it was not easy, and that you never left my side. So here I am, Father, beginning again, still, continuing. Even so, not because I must, but because I may, because your love makes it safe to stay, because your grace makes it possible to grow, because your presence makes the middle holy. Father, before anything else is said, I pause to remember who you are, to remember who I am in you. Yesterday, I asked for the grace to continue. And today, I realize I cannot continue without remembering, without anchoring myself again in the truth that has carried me this far. It is not momentum that sustains me. It is memory, holy memory. Sacred recall. The kind that lifts my eyes when they start to forget the light. It is so easy, Father, to forget what you have already done. In the flurry of responsibilities and the noise of expectations, the past can blur, and gratitude slips quietly out the back door of my heart. But you are always inviting me to return, not to live in the past, but to gather its evidence, to gather reminders of the miracles already witnessed, the mercy already tasted, the grace that has already made a home in me. So today, I stop the spiral of striving. I take a breath. I look back not with longing, but with clarity. I look for the fingerprints of your presence in places I once thought were barren, and I find them in the silence I survived, in the waiting rooms where I grew stronger, in the conversations that reminded me I was not alone. I remember the nights I thought would undo me, and yet morning came. I remember the prayers I whispered into the dark, and the surprising ways you answered, sometimes not with solutions, but with strength. Remembering is resistance. It is how I refuse the lie that nothing is changing. It is how I silence the inner critic who says I am stuck. Because when I remember, I see it clearly. I have already been changed. Not overnight, not without pain, but undeniably. There are old fears that no longer grip me, old patterns I now recognize, old wounds that are finally forming scars. And these things matter. They matter more than metrics or milestones. I remember the softness you have cultivated in me, the compassion that has grown from my own ache, the perspective born from hardship. These things are not visible on a chart or celebrated in a room, but they are treasures. They are testimonies, and they remind me that progress often hides itself in quietness. Father, help me become someone who remembers well, who keeps track of grace like it is gold, who learns to see each season not as a separate story, but as part of a thread that you are still weaving. Let my memory be more than nostalgia. Let it be a well I draw from when I am thirsty for hope. Let it be a fire I gather around when the cold of doubt creeps in. There were times I wanted to quit, and you steadied me. Times I lost direction, and you waited patiently. Times I believed the worst, and you showed me a better way. All of this is worth remembering. It changes how I carry today, because I am not waking up empty. I am waking up full of reminders that you have never left, that you have been faithful in the quiet, and that you are not finished yet. When I am tempted to panic about the future, remind me of the past. When I feel weak, remind me how I have endured. When I feel overlooked, remind me how deeply known I already am. And when I feel like I need to earn something from you, remind me that you already gave everything. I do not need to prove my worth. I need only to remember it. Memory is not passive. It is powerful. It shapes how I speak to myself, how I speak to others, how I walk through pain and respond to joy. Memory allows me to bless the present instead of curse it. It allows me to say, even here, even now, there is goodness. Maybe not in the form I asked for, but in the form I needed. Let me carry reminders with me like sacred stones. Small tokens of the ways you have moved in my life, not just for me, but for those who come after me. Let my life be a living altar, where others can come and see what grace looks like in motion. Let them see how you rescued me from fear, how you rewrote the story I thought was over, how you taught me to dance again in the ruins of my expectations. Even my mistakes have something to teach me, not in shame, but in testimony. I remember the choices that led to pain, not to punish myself, but to see how you met me there too, how you did not withdraw, how you did not condemn, how you offered kindness when I deserved silence. Those are the memories that undo me in the best way. They remind me that your love is not performance-based, is presence-based, constant, undeterred. And when I look around and it feels like nothing is moving, I will look within and remember all that already has. I will remind my weary soul that transformation is often invisible before it is undeniable, that roots grow before fruit appears. That remembering is how I keep my hands open even when my heart feels unsure. Father, thank you for the gift of memory, for the ability to trace your hand through the fog of my story, for the small flashes of clarity that interrupt my confusion, for the quiet assurance that if you were faithful then, you are faithful now. If you carried me through the last season, you will carry me through this one too. Today, let my thoughts not drift aimlessly, but circle back to the truth. Let the past not be a prison, but a path. Let the moments I remember become fuel for the moments I face. Let my recollection lead to restoration, and let that restoration ripple outward into my words, my choices, my relationships. Let my remembering make me gentle. Let it make me generous. Let it make me bold in kindness and soft in conflict. Let it shape how I show up, not striving for something new to earn, but grounded in what has already been given. I may not know what this day holds, but I remember who holds it, and that is enough. Father, this morning I come with less to say and more to feel. There is something about the end of a journey that brings a hush to the soul. Not because there is nothing left, but because what remains is finally enough. These mornings spent in quiet conversation with you have opened doors I did not know were locked. They have drawn me not only closer to you, but back into myself, into the place where honesty and hope finally shake hands. I am not the same person who began this walk. And yet, I am not altogether new either. I am simply more awake, more attuned to the sacred rhythm beneath all the noise, more able to see the extraordinary hiding within the ordinary, the grace folded into each breath, the strength that never asks for recognition, the quiet, steady pulse of mercy that hums beneath it all. Today is not about new beginnings or final words. It is about presence, the kind that does not demand a spotlight, the kind that whispers instead of shouts, the kind that settles softly and stays. I do not need a dramatic conclusion to feel full. What I long for now is less about answers and more about awareness of this moment, of this breath, of this nearness that no distance or silence can undo. There is beauty in the in-between. Father, in the space between sunrise and noon, between asking and receiving, between knowing and not knowing, you meet me here too, in the unfinished, the unresolved, the unfolding. And maybe that is the greatest miracle of all, that you are not waiting for me at the finish line, but walking with me through every uncertain mile. I have learned to sit longer in the silence, to trust that stillness is not absence, but intimacy in its purest form. I have learned that surrender is not giving up, but giving way to something better, deeper, wiser than I could build alone. And I have learned that even when the sky stays gray, the light underneath is never gone. It only waits for my eyes to adjust. So today I do not come with questions, but with thanks, not the loud kind, but the kind that lingers under the surface and warms everything it touches. I thank you for the mornings that came after nights I thought would never end, for the words that found me when I had none left, for the peace that did not explain itself, but simply arrived, for the reminders that I am held, even when I feel hollow. And thank you for the courage to stay when running felt easier, for the patience to keep praying when silence stretched long, for the joy that returned quiet, but sure, for every small mercy that added up to enough. If I could leave one imprint on the heart of whoever has journeyed with me this far, it would be this: that faith is not always fire. Sometimes it is the warmth of a single ember that refuses to go out. That hope does not always roar. Sometimes it sighs, and still it stays. That healing rarely comes all at once, but in quiet layers, like morning light slipping through a window cracked open, just enough And that grace, always grace, is the thread. The steady hand in the dark, the voice that does not accuse, the presence that never performs but always prevails. Now, Father, I open my hands again, not in demand, but in release. I lay down expectations and pick up attentiveness. I let go of control and choose curiosity. I set aside fear and reach for wonder. I know now that you are not in the distant thunder, but in the gentle breeze, not only in the mountaintop moments, but in the long walks through the valley where the silence teaches me how to listen differently. Let the echo of this prayer not be a closing, but a continuation. Let it hum in the quiet places of my heart throughout the hours ahead. Let it be a doorway I keep returning to, not because I must, but because I want to. Because this space between you and me has become home. Not a place I visit, but a place I live from. And if anyone who has walked this path beside me needs permission, let this be it. To feel deeply, to rest honestly, to stumble and still be loved, to begin again, even when it feels late, to be small and still be seen, to be unsure and still be guided, to be broken and still be enough, to believe gently, slowly, truly that none of this was wasted. Even now, Father, as this chapter nears its close, I feel no need to close anything, because you are not a sentence that ends. You are a presence that continues. And in that knowing, I find peace, not the peace of resolution, but of relationship, of knowing I do not walk alone. I never have. So I will rise, not with fanfare, but with quiet steadiness. I will carry the light I found here into the rest of my day. Not perfectly, but faithfully. I will pay attention. I will remember. I will rest when I need to. I will speak kindly, especially to myself. I will listen for your whisper beneath the noise. And I will trust that even in silence, you are near. And when doubt creeps in, as it surely will, I will return not to strive for a feeling, but to remember the truth, that I am held, that I am loved, that I am never alone. To every soul who has joined me on this path of morning prayers, thank you for walking this tender ground, for choosing to show up, for giving your heart the space to breathe again. These words were never about perfection. They were always about presence, about carving out a place in your morning where truth could rise gently like mist from the earth. If these prayers have comforted you, strengthened you, or simply given you a moment of pause, I invite you to leave your own words below. Share what you have discovered, what you have remembered, what still lingers. And if you would like to keep journeying together, subscribe to this channel so we can meet again in the quiet corners of the soul. Share this with someone who may need a breath of peace. And above all, keep showing up. Keep tending to your spirit. Keep choosing faith, not because it is easy, but because it is real. Some mornings will still be heavy. Some prayers will still be quiet. But underneath it all, there is a light that never leaves. Like the first warmth of sunlight touching a window. Like a breeze that brushes across the skin without needing to be seen. Like the hush of a stream that keeps moving even when no one is listening. It is here, and it is enough.